Hello and welcome to English 1302. This is week 8. We have a little bit of housekeeping to get to before we get started on what we're doing. We are into the last 2 weeks of the course and we are starting our final essay. All right, as a bit of housekeeping, I just wanted to remind you guys that the last day to drop this course without penalty to your grade, to your GPA, is Tuesday, July 22nd. So this is Sunday, the 20th. So be sure to double check your grades. If you are not able or not comfortable with bringing your grades up to passing before the 22nd, uh, then and you have a drop available, you might want to drop. I'm just saying consider it. If you would like to stay in the class and you'd like some help, let me know. I can help make sure that you've got everything covered, but it's really up to you to turn the work in. Most students who fail my class fail because they simply did not turn in their assignments. All right, with that being said, we are starting on our final author, which is Isaac Asimov, and I wanted to give you guys a few heads up about what's going on with Isaac. So research report number 3. Much like research report number 1 and 2, we are doing a life and times of Isaac Asimov discussion board this week. And we're doing two stories. The first story by Isaac Asimov that we'll be reading is The Last Question, and this is Asimov's most favorite short story that he has written. Let's see, I'm going to have to replace the video somehow. I did have a video of him reading the story, which was really amazing since it was his favorite story. But the family of Isaac Asimov is pretty particular about what's going on the internet with him, so I'll find you another reading of it, hopefully. But it's a story that does require some explanation. We've got 9 discussion questions, and be sure to read through them. The first thing to know about this is that it is a very long and very differently written story. So let's take a look at it. So it is 9 pages on a PDF. It does go by pretty quickly, but as you see here, he does talk about how this was his favorite story that he's written, and there's a reason for it. Isaac Asimov was a very interesting individual, much like Jackson and Vonnegut, and he was what we call a futurist, which you will see through some of the assignments we do this week, what that means. But this story is also set in the future, just like kind of like Vonnegut's. It's set in 2061, but the interesting part about this story is it is divided into different sections. So every time you see this line here, the time frame of the story is going to jump into the future by thousands of years. So I know that that's a lot, but just remember that every time you see this line in the story, it means the story has jumped ahead into the future by thousands of years. All right, so this is technically science fiction because that is what Isaac Asimov wrote the best, I believe. He did write in other genres, but science fiction was his forte. So those of you who don't care for science fiction, I get it, but this story is much more cerebral and less lasers and starships. Okay, so just remember that. So basically, there is the briefest synopsis. There's a computer that basically an AI computer at the very beginning of the story that helps mankind solve one of the greatest problems facing it at the time, and even in our reality, it's one of the greatest problems that we face, and that is how to sufficiently use the free energy we are getting from the sun. And in the story, they solve that problem, and so they basically have unlimited energy. And this is a story about what mankind can accomplish potentially if they have unlimited sources of energy, specifically the sun. Now, is the sun unlimited? Of course not. Eventually, as we know scientifically, the sun will eventually burn out, and that's kind of what this story is about. So try to keep up with it. It is a bit, it's a little bit out there, so keep an open mind. But like I said, it is tracking the idea of what mankind could do, humanity can do, if they had unlimited energy. If you want to read through the discussion questions before you read the story, that might give you an idea of what's going on a little bit. If you get stuck, just carefully read it, because the names of the people involved in the story change from what we consider conventional names at some point. And again, every time you see this line, the story jumps by thousands, if not millions, of years into the future. So at the beginning of the story, we are in the year 2061. By the end of the story, we are 1,000,000,000,000 years into the future. Yeah, 1,000,000,000,000, I believe. So that's the first story. Something that I have a visual here to give you an idea of what 1,000,000,000,000 years looks like, or 1,000,000,000,000 looks like, is this graphic. And it's actually kind of misleading, but it gives you a basic idea. So in the first part of the graphic, up here at the top, we have $1,000,000 in $100 bills stacked on the floor. So while this might be kind of heavy, I bet all of us could carry it away if we had to. In the second picture here, we have $100,000,000 stacked on a pallet in $100 bills. Now, remember, each bill there is 100, so that would represent, if you're trying to translate this into years, each $100 bill there would be worth 100 years. The third one here is $1,000,000,000 stacked in pallets in $100 bills. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 8 pallets there of a billion. It might be 10. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's 10. I'm sorry, 10 pallets there. That's what $1,000,000,000 looks like in $100 bills. 1,000,000,000,000 is here on the bottom. Here is the person for scale, and that's what $1,000,000,000,000 looks like in $100 bills on pallets of 100,000,000 each, and it's double stacked. So when you think about this story, the last question, it takes place in a time frame that spans this many years, and each of these $100 bills represents 100 years. So it's kind of mind-boggling, but I share this so that you have an idea of what that looks like, kind of a metaphysical, or not a metaphysical, but a physical representation of what that could look like. So again, with the last question, make sure that you read through it. I will have a video on here, hopefully, an audio reading of it for you to listen to. This video, Machine at the End of Time, is actually very good for, when it comes up, is good for explaining the story. Please be sure to read it. This is not going to explain it to you. It's not going to explain it to you without having read it. It is more of an explanation of what it means after you've read it. So be sure to read it. Because you're just going to get a partial explanation. Let's see. So that's the machine at the time. And then finally, there's the idea of entropy. So the main thrust of the story in the last question is that mankind asks the AI computer if entropy can be stopped. And entropy, if you're not familiar with it, is a concept, a scientific concept that once something is in motion, the energy can't be stopped. It everything goes from order to chaos, right? We're always going from order to chaos. If you leave something long enough, it will finally degrade and into chaos, right? Anybody who has cats understands this. Cats are children, even dogs. If you leave your house, you can leave your house perfectly just so, but when you come back to it, something will have changed simply because there's chaos. If you leave a piece of bread out to rot, so to speak, on the counter, if you just leave it on the counter, it will eventually uh, rot away into nothing. It's that idea is that we go from something ordered to something chaotic, and we spend a great deal of energy trying to keep things in order. So this video actually discusses what entropy is and how it works. So again, these concepts are all very useful to listen to if you're trying to understand what's going on in this story. It's a really fantastic story. It has a very interesting ending, and I'm super interested in knowing what you guys think of it. Let's see. So that being said, that is, I believe, what we are doing for this week. The 30th, I think, is for next week. What I don't see is the last question, the last answer. Oh, there it is. Last answer. Now, that's the second story that we are reading from Asimov, also this week. And it's another story. It's completely sort of different, actually, from the last question. See, the last answer, this one's up, so that's interesting. I wonder how long that will happen. In any case, the last answer is something, like I said, it's a little bit different. It's much shorter. Some of you might enjoy it more simply because it's shorter. It is not necessarily taking place in the future, but it has many things. There are certain concepts that are the same in it as well, that are relatable to the last question. So this one follows the story of Murray Templeton, who was a physicist, and it actually occurs as he is dying. So the story begins with Murray Templeton dying, and then it goes on to talk about what happened after that. Again, try to follow along. Be careful. There's literally only two characters in this entire story, Murray Templeton and another character called The Voice. And The Voice is always capitalized because it is character, The Voice. Okay, so it's 8 pages. It's not quite much shorter than the other story, but it's written a little bit differently. There's no jumping around in time per se, and I think it's a little more relatable to our everyday life. But so be sure to read it. Take a look at the discussion questions. There's only 5 discussion questions for this one, so be sure to read through that. But that's the last answer. I think that is all that is due this week. Actually, that's probably not true. It looks like we've got Asimov and Futurism and the Compare and Contrast. No, those are due next week. So we will talk about those next week. But for this week, you have the 2 stories which do need to be looked at. You have The Life and Times of Isaac Asimov, and then, like I said, we will have 2 weeks left. So the last day to drop, again, is the 22nd, which is in this week, in week 8. And I will be grading essay number 2 this week and trying to get that back to you so you can get revisions in. And I'm still accepting revisions for essay number 1. And once I have essay number 2 graded, I'll be accepting revisions for essay number 2. Remember, for essay number 3, there are no revisions, so try to make it the best possible you can. Be sure to use the writing resources. Take advantage of the Student Success Center, where they will happily review your story for you. I believe we're having a peer review on this. Let me double check. We set up a peer review. I'm not sure if we did set up a peer review for essay number 3? I think we did. We did. Okay, so there's going to be a peer review for it, but if you would like someone else to review your work, you're always welcome to go to the Student Success Center, and they are happy to help you out with that. And you can do it online. You don't have to go in person. So there is a different time frame or schedule for online as opposed to in person. So be sure to check that out. As always, if you have any questions about anything, please email me and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.